Welcome to Get to Know Glasgow, the podcast that tells you what you need to know about student life at the University of Glasgow, from those who know it best. I'm Alice, an international officer here at the uni, and in this series I'll be chatting to 2 undergraduate and 3 postgraduate students about their Glasgow journeys.
Hi, I'm Jessica.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Yassi.
I'm Shounak.
And I'm Serena. In each episode, we'll be sharing our experiences
and giving you our top tips
on everything from student jobs and budgeting
to making new friends.
So you'll know what it's really like to be part of Team U of G.
Let's get started.
Hey everyone, we're back with another episode of Get to Know Glasgow, and today we're going to chat all things accommodation. So where to live as a student in Glasgow, student accommodation, private halls and renting. There's so many options out there, so this is going to be a really good episode to kind of clear your heads around everything accommodation. Shounak, do you want to kick us off with some ideas about university accommodation?
Yeah, sure. I personally live in a student accommodation in MLitt residence, which is like about 15 minutes away from the campus, 15 minutes walk, and 7 minutes if you have a cycle with you. So it's like pretty convenient if you want to rush to a class pretty quickly. Apart from that, you have the Clyde River nearby. You have access to laundry facility in the accommodation. Also, you get bike parking area where you can park your bicycle. So that's another convenient thing provided by the accommodation services. But from that, you have access to Tesco, Lidl, and even Sainsbury, which are like pretty close to the accommodation. So it's like very convenient for you to get weekly groceries. Apart from that, I really like the services provided by the accommodation service over here. Like when I moved in over here, I had like loads of luggage and it was a bit tricky to get into my room because it was difficult to figure out which block I was living in. So the staff members over here were very helpful. They even helped me escort my bag into my room. So it was a lovely experience and I'm enjoying it right now. And it was a blessing in disguise actually, because MLitt residence was not on my top 3 selection list. But fortunately, I got the opportunity to live in this particular accommodation and it has been a great experience so far.
That's fantastic. You're having a great experience and having all of those supermarkets nearby, lots of options of where you're going to get your groceries for the week as well, Shounak. So it's really nice when you're quite central in the city of Glasgow to kind of find everything that you need in accommodation.
Yeah, I'm also in like a student accommodation right now. I won't name drop mine because unfortunately it has to be renovated quite a bit, so it won't be on offer for incoming students. Otherwise, I would really be talking it up because I have really enjoyed my time here. I'm very centrally located, like a 10-minute walk from campus, like super close to like Kelvin Grove Park. I also have like Little and Morrison super close to me. There's a train station super close to me, subway station, like it's very, very centrally located. I know there is another accommodation that's about a 5-minute walk from me that I think is still going to be on offer. I think it's the Kelvin Grove accommodation. So if people are looking like specific names of ones, that one's in the same area as me and it's like right above a Tesco, which is, you have no idea how useful that is and how much you'll appreciate being that close to a Tesco. But yeah, with being in student accommodation, I think I would really recommend going that route and like signing up to like get in. I know that I'm trying to remember how the process was when I was doing it. It feels like it was so long ago, but like as soon as like the accommodation like services like open, like get in there immediately. The way that it worked whenever I was doing it was you can put in like what your top preference is and then like other ones. So I managed to get my top preference. Yeah, just do it as soon as you can so you don't have to stress about that and you have it taken care of and you're not like trying to find a flat on your own. I think that the student accommodation is great, not only because unless you're doing a studio, you have flatmates that are in the same hall as you. So you're around other people that you can make friends with, you can ask questions. It gives you like that sense of community. There's also like laundry facilities. Most of the buildings will organize like different types of like community nights. Like they'll have like, recently there was like free pancakes like in the lobby, or there'll be like a painting night. They'll do different things like that to kind of like get you out of your rooms and get you like talking to other people, which is really sweet. It also, everything, what's included in the price, I think this goes for like all of them, but if I'm wrong, correct me. But it's like everything is included pretty much. So in your rent, it's like any type of bill that like for a normal flat, a normal apartment would be an additional cost. It's all included. So you don't have to worry about paying literally anything except for your rent. And that's just really, it's like a weight off your mind that you only have like one cost you have to pay for. But yeah, I'm on the West End, but I know there's also great accommodations in other places. I have friends who live like in accommodations in the city center and other parts of town. And luckily, like public transportation is so good here that it's not really like it's not the end of the world if you don't end up living on the West End, because there's always the subway, there's trains, there's buses, there's so many different like cheap and easy options for getting to the West End and getting to campus from wherever you might end up living.
Yeah, totally. I think you touched on the facilities you get with the uni residency, which is obviously great. On a more general note, I've actually never lived in the uni residency myself, but in my first year, a lot of mates living in the university, like in Queen Margaret, for example, the back of the Botanics. Although I didn't actually live there myself, like, see, when you go, the vibe's just like top notch. Everyone's in a good mood. Like you said, there's always like what's sort of activity, or sort of getting people out of the rooms to know each other. The vibe was always great fun. Everyone's sort of coming from so many different backgrounds and you know, cultures and stuff, and it all just kind of gets blended into one. And I find it so much fun, the people you meet, the socials you get around there. It's just a really good vibe to be around. So I'd highly recommend getting involved in that. But like I said, I was a home student, but I still had loads of mates who were in accommodation. So even if you are at home, you can still get out and about and enjoy time with your mates just as much as you would being in the residency itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so nice about like student accommodation, the university accommodation, is when you're maybe going somewhere for the first time. And if you're not a home student like yourself, Aaron, where you can't maybe stay at home, having somewhere where everyone's kind of in the same boat, everyone's maybe living somewhere new for the first time, and you're getting to know each other. And like you were saying, Jessica, you can apply for student accommodation once you have your offer to study. It's normally around kind of the end of February into start of March where applications will open. But if you've got a conditional or an unconditional offer, you can get started on that process of applying for accommodation and ranking your preferences. And I think the really good thing on the website is, everyone's kind of an individual, so everyone has different preferences of what they might like. So on that website, in our accommodation website, there's the student residence profiles, so you can see what each one looks like, so you can make that decision to rank which ones that you might like and which might suit you best in terms of both your budget, but also what you like in terms of facilities as well.
Yeah, that the the accommodation residence profiles was like, I was on that website like constantly. Like I kept like changing my rankings. Like I was like ready for the application to be available because I knew I wanted one with an ensuite. So that's also like, it's very important to pay attention to like what each accommodation has, given like the different price points will reflect that. I have a friend who lives in a different accommodation, which is a much lower price point than mine was, but it's also further from campus, and she has like a shared bathroom with her flatmates. I wanted to be as close as I could and have my own bathroom. So like everyone has their own priorities. If you want to save money and you're fine with different situations, or if you're willing to pay a little bit more and have the comfort of your own like attached bathroom, which I very much was not gonna live with sharing a bathroom. So I was, and the resident profiles, like is it accommodation profiles or resident profiles? I keep using them interchangeably, whatever the profiles are. They list all of that. Like they very clearly state like if it's an ensuite, if it's not an ensuite, like what's included, which is really, really helpful. There's also, I believe there's like YouTube video, like room tours that you can watch that'll be linked on the website. So I was watching those like a lot. It's really upfront about what you're getting. Yeah, just using the university website and then other like internet resources to see like what other people have said about the accommodations, just making sure that like you get what's going to work best for you as an individual.
I've confirmed that the given name is residence profiles, so we're all good.
I was doubting myself.
I know, they mean the same thing, so it's all good. So in terms of like, we're talking about the actual kind of residences, and I know that Jessica, you touched on those kind of like, and Aaron as well, of like people having different events, of kind of getting to know each other. How did you find, was this when you were coming into maybe university accommodation, was it your first time like living by yourself away from home? How did you find that? That's quite a massive change.
Yeah, no, it was very much. I'd never left the country. I'd never lived further away than like a 30-minute drive, like from my mom's house. Like, so this was like huge move, like have never been so far away from home before, like terrified. But it literally worked out like best case scenario as well as it possibly could have, which I hope helps someone who's listening to this if there is terrified as I am, it can work out very well. Like it can, like best case scenario can happen. And I decided to go with a shared situation in terms of living rather than a studio, because I was like, even if I don't end up becoming like besties with who I'm living with, at least I'm around other people. At least I don't feel isolated. And I knew like my mental health well enough to know that I needed to be around other people. So I am lucky enough, I am friends with some of the girls that I'm living with. And like, it's just good to have other people around you that are in like a similar situation. But yeah, it was very much my first time living like completely alone, completely away from home. And I think with having the resources from the university, like the Unibuddy app that I talk about constantly, and having that available to have friends prior to moving here, and then just how welcoming and friendly the city is and everything, it's really worked out as well as it could have with how scary of a circumstance it was for me.
Well, definitely, I can agree on that, because even I had the experience of living alone back in India, but moving into a new country like Glasgow, it feels overwhelming in the beginning, because you are an international student and it's your first time experience living abroad. But moving into student accommodation definitely helped, because you get accustomed to the atmosphere quite easily, and Glasgow being a very safe place, it's like very easy for you to go around, explore the city without feeling it's what I mean to say is it's actually very safe, and you get to interact with a lot of people who are there in the uni in student accommodations. That's an added advantage as compared to living in private halls, where you might even share a flat with someone who's not in the uni. So in my case, I got to interact with a lot of other people who were there in the uni. So that sense of community is there in student accommodations.
I've got one bit of advice as well, on a more sort of humorous note. Once you've sorted out your accommodation, once you've been into that place, I had some friends in my first year who were flatmates who then became boyfriend and girlfriend. And my only advice is don't do that. Do not become into the shit with your flatmates, because it can honestly, like, it can make life. I mean, I've seen it from the outside, and it can make your life utterly miserable. So just don't do it. The stress having to cohabitate with someone in your first year when you've moved potentially across the world, then date someone that you're living with, it sounds like absolute hell on earth, and it probably is. So my advice, if you're moving from across the world, even if you absolutely love someone to bits, just hang fire until you maybe get your own place. You guys are separated, because if things go wrong in that first 10 months, or even before that, if things go wrong in that first year living together, it makes life quite challenging, quite tricky. So don't do it.
Sounds like a horror story, Aaron. It could be like the greatest love story of all time, but yeah, it could go horribly wrong as well. I suppose like we're all kind of been talking about kind of the West End of Glasgow and close to the university in terms of accommodation. I suppose it's quite good. Like Glasgow is the biggest city in Scotland. There's lots of areas in Glasgow where you might want to live where it's maybe not right next to the university, but there's lots going on throughout other parts of the city. I don't know if anyone's got any experiences of other parts of the city, of where to live, good points.
Yeah, totally. I think to be kind of on the ball with this in terms of like exact areas, if you're not, like Jessica touched on before, if you're not on Byres Road, Middle West End, it's not the end of the world. Like you can absolutely, I'm currently in Anniesland I'm back home this year. It's literally like a 10-minute bus, and also your free bus pass if you're under 22. So Anniesland, Denniston, Garnet Hill, even parts of the south side, it's really well connected. Like I think if you're one friend who lives in Shawlands, you get to train to Central and then gets to subway. It's not far. You are quite well connected, especially with the West End. You've got all the buses, you've got the subway too, and Partick railway station isn't that far either. So you are quite, it doesn't really matter where you are, I think, as long as I'd recommend places like Anniesland, Garnet Hill or Denniston, but there are also more places you can be. And like I said before, if you're not in the middle of the West End, it's not game over. So you absolutely can live elsewhere in the city.
Yeah, even I have seen like lots of options available to rent flats in the countryside, particularly in Glasgow. And I'll recommend students to look for these opportunities for renting a flat or a house within Glasgow after their first year, after they complete their masters, if they are coming in as a master's student. Because initially you'll be juggling with classes, you will also be cooking possibly. So there are so many activities to do. And if you go into renting a flat, what I feel is you'll be involved in, there'll be some sort of burden on you because there's separate council tax in some cases. And what I recommend usually is that you can go for a rented flat after 1 year, so you can share it with your friends. You'll make good friends as well during your 1 year. And the thing with rented flats is that it's actually a lot cheaper as compared to other options available in student accommodations or even private accommodations, but you have to travel a lot in that case. So has its downsides, but it's a good place.
I think also to add on to what Aaron was saying with how connected everything is. So coming from living somewhere that had no public transport, like at all, I was very intimidated by how that would work over here. So I specifically chose my accommodation so that I would be walking distance from the university, because I was stressed enough about 500 other things that, come up with moving to a different country. So I just wanted to be walking distance. But having lived here for almost a year now, it's really so easy to figure out the public transport. I got a subway card, so now I just top that up whenever I need to. It's literally a circle. The subway is a circle. It's very easy to understand. And Google Maps will tell you anything. It'll tell you what bus you need to get on. It'll tell you what stop on the subway to it tells you inner or outer circle. It's all very straightforward and easy to understand. The buses, the trains, the subway, it's nowhere near as intimidating as I originally had in my mind. And it really is so easy to get from one place to the other. I'm moving from my student accommodation in the West End right now, and I'm getting a flat in Denniston. And it's I'm not that sad about leaving the West End and leaving where I am, because everything is so close together. If I still want to come to campus to study while I'm finishing up my dissertation, or, just still feel involved on campus and on the West End, it's a really short train ride or bus ride or whatnot. So just don't be super intimidated by the public transportation. It's not terrifying, I promise.
No, totally. I think if anyone listening's from cities like Tokyo, London, New York, etc., Glasgow transport's an absolute walk in the park. It's so straightforward, and also I think people generally are really nice here. I've noticed that coming back here. If you are struggling with things, honestly, any old person, just ask them, and they'll be delighted to help you out with anything. Whether it's does this bus go here or does that train go there, and they'll chat to you. And yeah, it is quite straightforward. I think Glasgow has this really nice feeling to it in terms of, like you said, Alice, a big city, but at the same time, it's not like an absolute metropolis. It is still has a very nice sort of feel to it. It's not too intense, it's not too rushed. So, and yeah, the transport's fantastic. So if you are ever stuck, honestly ask, whether it's the bus drivers or ticket inspectors. People are usually pretty nice and pretty able to help you out, and they'll chat to you and stuff. So people are pretty nice around here.
Yeah, absolutely. And they almost will then want to know your story of where you're going and what you're up to as well. So you'll find a friend when you get on that the bus for having a nice conversation with. Jessica, you mentioned obviously that you're moving to Denniston. I'm a big Denniston fan. I lived there for years and years. So if you need any tips, you can come to me. But in terms of finding that kind of accommodation, I know it's quite different from maybe finding the kind of university accommodation. How did you find that experience?
Yeah, so the university accommodation was easiest process in the world. Just got the email that applications were open, put in my preferences, got lucky enough to get my first preference, put down a deposit, very easy, very straightforward. Getting a flat was kind of a different story with, not being a citizen here, and you don't really have the financial history here. So it is definitely a more complicated process. That's why I advocate so much for getting into the student halls and going with university accommodation if you have that option. I do know friends who their timeline was different from mine, so they didn't get into the accommodation and they did have to search for a flat, and it was a very stressful situation for them. So first, if you're in a 1-year master's or whatever your program is, I would say go into the student accommodation first, and then once you graduate or whatever and you start looking for a flat, just do it with enough time that you won't be incredibly stressed out. Know when your move out date is for your student accommodation and really start looking with enough time that you won't be incredibly stressed. I started seriously flat hunting. I think it took 2 months, I think, until I found something, because you'll sign up for a viewing and then it'll be like, oh, like it's been let already, like someone took it. And it is like a pretty competitive market, and it's very different from what I was used to back home. So not to discourage anyone, because it did work out for me. I did get a flat. I don't want to make it sound like, it's a nightmare situation, but just so you're prepared and you have enough time. If you're not from here, you will need like a UK guarantor. So someone who's a citizen here to like sign on your behalf and like say, like that you're good, or you'll have to like pay rent in advance. So it's one of those types of situations with, not having the financial history or whatever, but it is possible. You can find a place. Yeah. So excited to be moving to Denison.
I think just to add to your advice as well, Jessica, I think not that there's like a load of people out there doing it, it's definitely a minority, but there are sometimes landlords who will try and make the most of students and try and, because they know students are obviously very young, potentially naive to this sort of whole process. So if anything does seem off or you just don't know, definitely reach out to the university or the SRC, because, for example, I know people who've been asked to pay things up front that just don't really make any sense, because landlords just know these guys are students, they don't know what they're doing. So even if you don't know or something seems a little bit wrong, don't be scared to reach out to things like SRC or to university and say, like, listen, does that make sense? Should I be paying that? Should I not? Like, why am I paying that? And just ask away, because people do know these things, and if you don't, that's okay, but there'll always someone who does know it. So absolutely check with them and make sure that any payment or anything you're being asked to do that it actually makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Aaron, because as you were saying, like, Jessica, it wasn't kind of what you're used to. Everywhere works differently in terms of, and I know, Aaron, you probably had this when you were studying abroad. It's always different wherever you might go, and there's always different rules, and you might not be sure of what they are. Like sometimes, I'm from Scotland and I can't always be 100% sure of what everything is. And I think pointing them, Aaron, as you were saying, to the SRC, so there's really good guidance on the website around accommodation, what to look out for in terms of like tenancy agreements. Like if you're looking at this document, this legal document, and you're not exactly sure what it all means, just get that kind of second advice, just to be on the safe side, just to know exactly what you're signing up for and what this means, and if that's actually how it works here in Scotland, or if there's something that's maybe not being done the correct way. It's always good just to get that second opinion when you're going through those kind of stages of things that you're maybe doing for the first time.
Not totally.
So I think in terms of like, we haven't really talked too much around costs or things like that. I know that, Jessica, you mentioned it was really good to hear, like in the university accommodation, I think it's really good that everything's kind of included. So that's all good in terms of you're just expecting that kind of one payment, which has your Wi-Fi, your utilities, and it has some contents insurance there as well. So that's really nice. And that's kind of the difference with private accommodation, where it could be cheaper in terms of what you're looking at in terms of monthly payments, but then you do need to consider those kind of additional costs. So I think just based on that, I just kind of thought I'll come round to everyone, see what your kind of final thoughts are in terms of accommodation and coming to Glasgow for the first time and settling in.
Well, yeah, to wrap things up, I'll suggest firstly for international students, as Jessica has previously mentioned, move into student accommodations first for the first year. You'll get exposure, you'll get to know how living alone feels like, and you'll also make good friends over here in the uni. And later on, if you build good connections with them, you can even share a flat after you graduate. So that is a safer path, is what I feel. And even in that case, like, that is pretty much easier to balance your life when you are over here as an MSc student. As I previously mentioned, that juggling around classes, assignments, cooking, it all becomes easier in a student accommodation. And when you rent a flat, there are other things to consider as well, because even I have a roommate who is currently doing flat visits, and it's sort of challenging sometimes along with the dissertation period going on to juggle between different things. But yeah, definitely worth it after 1 year to rent a flat with friends.
Yeah, I totally agree in terms of like for your first year, I think sticking to university accommodation is just a bit easier. And the mates you'll meet and stuff there, it's just like, it's good vibes, and I think it's a good place to be in general. And yeah, I think just for university and stuff, it's just, for me, it's more than just a degree, it's more than a bit of paper. You should always, if you want, what I did in first year, especially first year, like not to talk down in first year, but most people, their first year isn't too stressful. It's usually, the stress more comes from the moving abroad or whatnot. The course itself tends to be fairly okay. Not that it's easy, but you won't have to apply yourself as much as you will off your honours years. So if you want to do it either in the first year, and that means like go out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like absolutely go for it. And Hull's a great place for that because there'll be plenty of nightlife going on wherever you are in Hull. So absolutely, I think for that university experience and have make the most of it, I think Hull is a great place. And like Shounak had touched on briefly, once you make your mates and you've already lived together in first year, there's a really good chance that after first year you can find a flat elsewhere. But absolutely, first year Hull's I think is a really good shout. And yeah, definitely make the most of the experience because I'm literally going into my 4th year and it totally flies by. So absolutely enjoy as much as you can before things get a bit more stressful in your honours years.
Yeah, and again, to reiterate my earlier point, don't be afraid of public transportation. It's not scary. If you're not walking distance from the university or from a grocery store or whatever, like you will survive. It's honestly, it's not terrifying. Get a subway card, get a rail card if you qualify for the bus one that I'm too old for, so I don't know about it. But get all of the cards for public transport, and it's not scary.
Literally, and if you go the subway the wrong way, just stay on.
Yeah,
it's a circle, so it's fine.
You'll end up where you need to go if you use the Glasgow subway. That's what makes it good. Don't worry too much about using it.
And in terms of transportation, I feel cycle also comes in handy. If you own a cycle, that's pretty awesome because you get to explore a lot in the city. And the surprising thing is, I once visited the Brayhead shopping center here in Glasgow, and it showed on the Google Maps that it takes about 15 minutes by car. And then I was just browsing through and checked that, okay, now by cycle it just shows 20 minutes or 25 minutes. So it's almost the same time as though if you're going with a car as well. So the connectivity over here in Glasgow for cyclists is really great. And they are now building some cycle lanes as well. So it's a good cycle definitely comes in handy. And Glasgow offers pink cycles. I forgot the name, but you just have to pay a certain amount for an hour or two, depending on the time and you want to own that particular bicycle. And they have like cycle stands kept throughout Glasgow. So you can even use those, and they have the electric version as well. So transportation is like a very easy over here in Glasgow.
I didn't realise it was that quick to Brayhead, Shounak, by bike. I've not tried it before, but maybe one day I will. So I think that's a really great of like, obviously lots of different options for accommodation, but also lots of easy access to public transport when you're here in Glasgow as well, which is really fantastic.
We hope this episode has been useful. If you're interested in finding out more, you'll find the links you need in the show notes. And you can visit glasgow.ac.uk/get to know Glasgow. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.